Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand and welcome to the road trip video as Manchester United take on Rangers at Old Trafford. Ruben Amorim, Manchester United, they need a win at Old Trafford. They need confidence at their stadium, at their home ground, at their fortress. It once was a fortress. It definitely hasn't been that anymore. Ruben Amorim has just had his press conference and he's labelled the players as nervous and lacking in confidence. He said he was very frustrated after the Brighton game, maybe said some things in a way that he shouldn't have said them, but he's a young manager and he is frustrated. It's very, very telling, that 20-minute conversation with Sir Jim Ratcliffe after the game, and suddenly Manchester United wake up and get into the transfer market. Suddenly you have Matt Hargreaves over in Italy negotiating with Lecce for Patrick Dorgu. Suddenly there seems to be a shift in momentum and Ruben Amorim needs to be backed. But Ruben Amorim, this competition is absolutely huge and it is unfathomable right now for Manchester United to lose another game at Old Trafford. And Rangers, Scottish Premier League, they compete well in that league, of course they do, but the gulf between the Scottish Premier League and the English Premier League is a big one. And Manchester United should be winning this game. They should be winning this game comfortably. Now, Rangers have rested players. They are coming here to win. They will smell blood and they will go all out to beat Manchester United. This is one of their biggest games of the season. And Manchester United, they've got to win it. Is Ruben Amorim going to go full on Jose Mourinho and put all of his eggs in the Europa League basket? I would argue he has to. 10 points clear of the relegation zone for Ruben Amorim. Relegation isn't going to happen. Although you would argue if the bottom three teams weren't as bad as they were, it would be a lot more open. But thankfully for Manchester United, the bottom three teams haven't got many points on the board and Manchester United seem to have a comfortable gap from relegation. That is crazy to say as a Manchester United fan. But in the Premier League, you can kiss goodbye to European football. I can firmly say that. Unless we go absolutely ham in the last 2 weeks of the transfer window and pull off the best January window you've ever seen, I highly doubt European football is coming through the Premier League. Now, we could do an Erik ten Hag and win the FA Cup and get Europa League football that way. But there is a lot of competition in the FA Cup. There's a lot of big teams. And you would say Manchester United have done better against the big teams than the smaller teams so far under Ruben Amorim. So maybe the FA Cup is the way to go over the Europa League. When I look at the competitors and the teams, and I think Man United should definitely be in with a chance of winning that and should definitely at least be making the final when I look at the teams in there. But it's not as cut and dry as that. But the Europa League, why Ruben Amorim, I think does have to go full Jose Mourinho and go prioritise this competition, is because if we win the Europa League, you have a lifeline, you have Champions League football, you have a way of attracting players into this club in the summer. And let's be honest, Manchester United right now is a graveyard. It's a graveyard for signings, it's a graveyard for young players, and it's a graveyard for exciting, talented prospects coming in. What signing did Manchester United last make that has fully flourished and is reaping the rewards? You could name some successful signings, but the majority of careers in Manchester United come to die. And managers' careers as well. Ruben Amorim will already be feeling the pressure. He will already be feeling the weight of this job. But what we have to do is stick by this manager and we have to back him. If we would have got a question in his press conference, hopefully we'll get one next time, my question to Ruben Amorim was going to be, we asked you in Czech Republic in December, if you need reinforcements into this squad, do you need to sell players, to buy players, and what areas are you looking to improve? And he said, at this moment in time, we've got to assess the current squad. We've got to get the best out of the current set of players and assess the squad. And I was going to say, you said that to me in December. You've had time to assess now. Do you need support in the January transfer window? Do you need reinforcements now to play your style and play your system? And do you feel like you are being backed by the hierarchy? You are being backed by the management at this club? And I would have been really interested to hear what you had to say, because I think a lot of people would argue that the majority of that squad does not suit the style of football that Ruben Amorim wants to play. He said it himself. There are a lot of transition players in that squad. There are a lot of counter-attacking players. He wants to be constantly taking the ball to the opposition, having a high amount of possession and prodding and proking and having players in his team that have great technical ability, that can keep the ball, can keep building up playing and creating patterns of play and creating chance after chance after chance. Manchester United struggle to do that, which is why we struggle against the lower teams. We can't handle it. Whereas against the bigger teams, why we've done pretty well is because a lot of the time we sit in, we defend, and then we get the counter-attack. Okay, yeah, against Manchester City it was a very 50-50 game. Against Liverpool we took the game to them a few times. But overall, this is a counter-attacking team, and Ruben Amorim needs to change that. Some players will be able to adapt. Some players he will be able to see a future with. But the majority of that squad, it needs gutting. And there is an overhaul that is needed, and he needs support from the board. He needs support from Ineos. Is it all going to happen straight away? I mean, there's been reports out that Ruben Amorim feels like he needs 6 transfer windows. I mean, that is a lot. But we might need 6 transfer windows if we're going to do nothing in January every time. Do you know what I mean? So that's 3 years. Because if we're only counting the summer, because we don't really do much business in January, that's 3 years, because you have 2 transfer windows. Manchester United sometimes forget this. You have the January and you have the summer. But that chat with Sir Jim Ratcliffe after the Brighton game, the dressing room kind of anger that Ruben Amorim released. I mean, there's reports about the breakages of the TV. Will that be coming out of Ruben Amorim's paycheck at the end of the month from Sir Jim Ratcliffe with all the cost cutting? That's just a joke. It's just a joke. I've seen a lot of people putting the episode on from The Office where Michael's absolutely buzzing with his new TV on the wall, a little Toshiba. He's at Sir Jim Ratcliffe replacing the new TV in the dressing room. But the Brighton game felt like it was a tipping point. Ruben Amorim's cup looked like it was full. He looked like a man that was finally sick of dealing with what he's got to deal with and knowing how big of a job is on his hands and how much there is to do. And that 20-minute conversation with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, I think what Sir Jim Ratcliffe's done in that conversation, he said, Ruben, like, you're our guy, we're going to back you. And now it looks like we're going into the transfer window to try and do something. I know FFP's tight, I know PSR's tight. Maybe that's why Garnacho might leave the football club. But in open training, as you saw, Garnacho's still training, Anthony's still training, Rashford's still training. 3 players who are rumoured to leave Manchester United. Surely them 3 can't go without bringing in a really good attacking reinforcement. And I'm talking about Acuna from Wolves. I'm talking about Mbeumo from Brentford. Get someone in who has the physical capabilities to play in the Premier League in this system. Mbeumo and Acuna can both do that. I mean, get in the comments down below who you'd like to see us sign. But I was discussing with a journalist earlier off camera, and I was saying the Premier League, it's all about pace. It's all about power. And we don't have enough pacey and powerful, strong athletes in our side. That's what the Premier League's about. And Cunha and Mbeumo gives you that power. They give you them athletes, but they give you the technical ability as well. And just floating in behind the striker, they would be quality additions. But Rangers, I have actually got somebody to join us to give us some insight on Rangers from Scottish coverage over in the Scottish Premier League. So he will give us some insight. But this is a game that Ruben Amorim, he has to look to win this in terms of pushing forward in the Europa League. So let's bring them in. Okay, everyone, I am now joined by Patrick. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us. What can you tell us about Rangers going into this game for our fans who are obviously not as well caught up on the Scottish Premiership?
Yeah, it's been a tricky season for Rangers and Philippe Clement. You look at their home form, it's been exceptional. Their away form hasn't quite been the same. But in Europe, it's a completely different entity. Those fans at home, they make that atmosphere. And just because this game's an away game, I wouldn't expect anything less. I think it's 3,500 fans heading down to Old Trafford. They'll make some noise, and they'll almost even act as a 12th man, even saying that in a stadium like Old Trafford.
And Old Trafford, they probably are going to be nervous. The Ruben Amorim's named the team to be nervous. Our home record at the moment isn't great. Would you say this is one of Rangers' biggest games of the season, and they can maybe capitalise on that nervousness from Manchester United?
I think as a Rangers fan, if you're an onlooker looking at it, the biggest game of the season is always those Old Firm derbies against Celtic. In Europe, they've had some big tests. That 1-1 draw against Tottenham at Ibrox, this you could say is their biggest test on the road, and they'll be feeling that this is almost a good time to play against Manchester United. But can Manchester United, Ruben Amorim's Reds, almost show up on the night? That seems to be the biggest question.
Is there any players that Manchester United fans should watch out for and Ruben Amorim should be looking to nullify? Any players from Rangers where you think they could cause us problems?
I think the one big name that every Man United fan, Ruben Amorim, will have definitely done his research on is Hamza Igerman. He's been a shining light in this Rangers team so far. His first season at the club, 13 goals in all competitions already. And he's their almost target man. He's the man that kind of creates everything up front, holding the ball in, allowing players like Václav Černý, another dangerous player on the wing, they'll be the two to look out for, and Rangers play with those attacking fullbacks. So Manchester United will have a game on their hands. There's no doubt about that, and we'll just see what happens on the night.
Do you think he'll outplay Højlund or Xerxes?
Well, looking at Xerxes' recent form, maybe, but he's definitely one to watch, and I'm sure if Rangers can keep hold of him, they'll be doing really well in transfer windows to come.
Well, thank you very much for giving us some intel, and we will look forward to the game.
Thank you so much for having me.
OK, everyone, that was Patrick with some great insight onto Rangers and their form in the Scottish Premiership and what the expectations are for them in Europe. That 1-1 draw against Tottenham, that is one to watch as well, because Spurs, I know they've had a rocky season as well, but very good Premier League side. On paper, you look at them and you think they should be beating Rangers. It didn't happen. So anything can happen at Old Trafford, especially with Manchester United's recent form. My predictions for this game, I do think Manchester United will win, but I think it'll be a very tricky game. I'm going to go with either a 1-0 to Manchester United, or will we not concede though? That's the question. Actually, I'm going to go with a 2-1 to Manchester United. I think it'll be an edgy game, but I think we'll just get it over the line. Ruben Amorim is going to stick to his principles. Do any players shift in and shift out? The one thing that I would say is I think Joshua Zirkzee has to start this game. The reason being is I think if you're going to give a striker a go up front for Manchester United, give them consecutive games. Højlund was the guy. Zirkzee started the last game. I think considering he was feeding off scraps, he did pretty well. He's probably one of the only players that could come off the pitch and say, I did my job in my position. Obviously, a striker's job's to score goals, but when you're basically feeding off nothing, his hold-up play was decent, his link-up play was decent. Give him some consecutive starts. That's what I would do, and could build his confidence, get him up front in this game. I think Collier's banging on the door for a start. Some good cameos as of late. Ugarte and Mainoo have looked a little bit tired in that midfield. I mean, Ricky will tell you it's because the positions of our other players, i.e. the number 10s and maybe the centre-backs, aren't right, and I think he would be correct in saying that. But I would look to potentially get Collier in for this home game at Old Trafford against Rangers. I think he deserves it, so I'd be looking to bring him in. How many changes does Ruben Amorim really want to make, though? Because he does need to win this game and avoid a playoff game. That's the last thing you want with how thin the squad is, and he's already talked about the lack of training time. And then I would also be tempted to play Ahmad at wing-back. I think he flourishes in that wing-back position. Don't get me wrong, I think he's great as a 10. I wish I could quadruple the player, so I could play him at left wing-back, right 10 and left 10. Even create a fifth one to play him up front at this rate. I wish I could do that, but we can't. You can only play him in one spot, and I do think our wing-backs are hindering us. It's basically like playing a back five. And if you're at Old Trafford, you're in this competition, really you want to go on the front foot, and I do think our attacking play is better when we have Ahmad at wing-back. I know Anthony's just agreed a loan move to Real Betis, so I doubt he'll play, but somebody with some attacking prowess on that wing-back position, and that's exactly why we're looking at Dorgu as well. But that's what I would go with. I'm going with a 2-1 Manchester United win. Hopefully we can turn the tide and Ruben Amorim can start to flourish in this competition at least, because we need that Champions League football. But thank you everyone for watching. Get your predictions down in the comments, and thank you to Patrick as well. Hit a like on the video if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.